Do not decode yet. Go online and connect me to a phone call, Li Xiaoxin said, pulling out a small, slim, feminine phone from her body. She looked up Daniel's number in the device. She had bought this phone during her trip to Singapore with Liang. It held their most precious photos together, and also the entire contact list she'd secretly copied from Liang's phone. She'd long heard Liang boast about his hacker friend known as Worm Dada, and right now, he was the only savior she could think of. Daniel answered almost immediately, so startled he stammered. Though he'd never met Li Xiaoxin in person, he'd heard plenty from Liang about how deeply he cared for her. Ever since her disappearance, Liang had been constantly venting his worries to Daniel. Now that Li Xiaoxin was suddenly calling him, Daniel nearly shoved the phone straight into Liang's ear. Li Xiaoxin spoke urgently. Dada, I'm in serious danger. I don't have time to talk to Liang. Save me. Quickly help me crack an explosive code. The bomb is inside my brain. Just moments earlier, Daniel had received a call from Elena, who claimed she'd uncovered insider information about Mishima Bank and suggested using it as leverage in negotiations. But now, realizing a life hung in the balance, he dropped everything and sat down at his computer, asking Li Xiaoxin, "Is this the IP you're using right now?" Scott snatched the microphone and said, "Worm Dada, this is Scott, the engineer here. I've heard of you. You need to access this exact IP. I'll guide you directly to the password lock." At that moment, a mechanical female voice blared over the intercom. "All personnel, be advised. An intruder has breached the center and is currently sealed inside the control room. Technical staff must evacuate immediately with mobile equipment to Zone X. Combat units will withdraw in 3 minutes. Li Xiaoxin turned to Scott. "What does that mean?" Scott shouted into the mic at Daniel. "Dada, hurry. We only have 3 minutes. In 4 minutes the entire building will self-destruct." Daniel froze for a split second. "What? That's a Class F encryption. Cracking it in minutes would require mobilizing the entire global computing network." He cursed non-stop under his breath, but his hands moved like lightning, powering up 6 computers simultaneously and connecting with trusted hackers online. As a legendary figure in the hacking world, with a record elite skills, street credibility, and even jail time behind him, Daniel roared into his headset, instantly galvanizing every hacker logged on worldwide. His fingers spasmed across the keyboards at insane speed while he chanted like a rapper in rapid-fire African-American vernacular English. "Listen up, heroes of the world, you've got 3 minutes. You're part of a mission to save Earth right now. This is a terrorist base launching nuclear war, nukes aimed right at your asses. Find every password inside this IP, crack it, and shut it down. Oh god, I'm running out of breath. Black brothers and those slightly darker, kick out anyone who tries to hack in after 1 minute. Asians, steal their intel and send it all straight to me. Caucasians, follow data and hit the security system hard. Crack that code. Help me, I can't breathe." For hackers, nothing was more thrilling than an unbreakable cipher. Within seconds, hundreds of hackers from across the globe launched a coordinated assault on the Apostles' central server. Li Xiaoxin and Scott listened in stunned silence. They never imagined Daniel could orchestrate a global rescue operation in under 30 seconds. Screens flickered chaotically, flooded with streaking data streams and flying coordinates. Scott's fingers never stopped moving as he typed furiously and yelled at Daniel. "Wrong, don't cut the main power. Tell them not to cut the main circuit, only sever the emergency power. Wrong, don't cut the power, you idiots, only cut the emergency line. Ah, dark-skinned Indian guy, you're not black. Your ancestors were Aryans. Damn it, don't speak Hindi to me. I mean actual black people. And you black defenders don't lock down the whole circuit." Daniel had slipped into hysteria, mechanically echoing Scott's instructions while frantically rerouting hacker traffic and simultaneously decoding Li Xiaoxin's self-destruct chip. Li Xiaoxin felt completely different now. No matter how intense the gunfire or perilous the battlefield, she'd never panicked or lost control, but now, sensing the collective strength of strangers from around the world rallying for her, she was overwhelmed. She wanted to smile. She couldn't remember the last time she'd genuinely smiled. Clutching her chest wound still numb to pain, she felt warm blood pulsing out with each heartbeat. But this surge wasn't from injury. It came from realizing so many people were fighting for her. Tears welled in her eyes. Whatever the outcome, it would be decided in 3 minutes. Daniel watched as potential passwords were rapidly eliminated on the central screen. The long filtered sequence shrank steadily, inching toward victory until finally, a sharp beep sounded. A single password had been isolated. Beep, the computer emitted a continuous piercing tone. Scott held his breath and froze. Li Xiaoxin asked, "What's happening?" "I don't know. Too many hackers flooded in, the system overloaded and locked itself." They both fell silent, listening. All noise had vanished, even the alarm over the intercom had stopped. Scott gripped the chair and stood up slowly, dazed and hollow-eyed. "The 3 minutes are up. The entire center's system is down. Those hackers didn't care what was useful or not. We need to find a way out now. The electric doors won't open again. Do you still have explosives?" Li Xiaoxin panted as she looked at Scott, then slowly lifted her black mask. Beneath it appeared a pale, stunningly beautiful East Asian face, so breathtaking Scott couldn't help whispering, "Rain. Thank you, Scott. I originally wanted you to pick up my helmet for me, but I've changed my mind. I'll open the door and let you go first." If anyone lifted the shielding helmet, the chip would detonate, making the decoder the greatest threat. But Li Xiaoxin's words made Scott realize she trusted him completely. After a pause, he replied, "No, the Apostles won't let me walk out. If the center's self-destruct system fails, they'll send angels to blow this place up. You know, this isn't something they'd leave for the police to find, even though angels aren't allowed inside. Their base is just minutes away. There might already be angels waiting outside. Neither of us can escape. He sank back into his chair, utterly defeated. Li Xiaoshen silently leaned against the table and walked into the buffer corridor. She carefully placed explosives along the seam of the steel door. Scott had already reached the entrance of the corridor and was watching her with confusion. Scott, she said, the angels could blow up this center at any moment. You need to leave as soon as possible. Once the door is blown open, raise your hands and walk out. I'll follow right after, but they'll shoot me the moment I step out. I'll stay here until you're safely gone. Scott slowly stepped into the corridor but suddenly stopped and turned back. Take off your shielding helmet, he said. Li Xiaoshen hesitated. She still wasn't sure if the deactivation code had truly worked, and as a woman, even at the very end, she wanted to leave this world looking clean and dignified, not with the back of her skull blown away for someone to see. But Scott's expression told her something else. If survival wasn't guaranteed anyway, why not see the result of their desperate effort? Maybe that was just an engineer's natural curiosity. He looked at her face and gave a slow, gentle nod. Maybe we can both make it out together. Look into my eyes, just try it. Li Xiaoshen walked back to the center of the control room, standing far enough away so the blast wouldn't hurt Scott. With a sharp breath, she gripped the helmet with both hands and yanked it off. Her champagne gold hair spilled into the air, releasing a soft, delicate fragrance that mingled strangely, almost seductively, with the thick stench of gunpowder. She locked eyes with Scott. The silence around them was absolute, broken only by the sound of their heartbeats. Scott smiled a genuine, relieved smile. Li Xiaoshen returned a polite, fleeting smile before sprinting back to the corridor to adjust the detonation timer on the explosives. As she steadied herself against the steel door, she heard its light, rhythmic footsteps outside. She knew that sound well. It was the same soft tread she'd heard every day back at the Angel training facility. Not the heavy clomp of men's boots, this was unmistakably feminine. She turned and ran quietly back into the control room, whispering urgently to Scott, "They're really here." "What?" Scott whispered back, stunned. "They'll only come to destroy this place. No one knows I'm here, they won't rescue me." Li Xiaoshen snatched a submachine gun from the floor and thrust it into his hands. "The moment the door blows, they'll toss in grenades first. Then storm in. That's standard Angel protocol." "Scott, but I don't know how to shoot," he protested, panic rising. She ignored him. She slammed a fresh magazine into the weapon, pulled back the charging handle, disengaged the safety, and forced the gun into his grip before turning back toward the steel door. Just then, the computer screen flickered back to life. The headset beside it crackled with Daniel's frantic voice. Li Xiaoshen rushed over, grabbed the earpiece, and spoke into the mic. "The bomb's been disarmed. Data. Thank you. Don't tell Young where I am, I'll find him myself. We sealed the entire system earlier to block counter-hacks during the breach." Daniel shouted back. "Now that defenses are stable, I've reconnected. I already told Liang where you are." Both of them were talking over each other in desperation, then fell silent at the same instant. Seizing the pause, Daniel rushed on. "I'm patching you through to Liang right now. Don't hang up. Do you have a phone number? I've traced your location. He's in Frankfurt too, and he's coming to you immediately." "No, no," Li Xiaoshen screamed into the mic. "Don't connect me to Liang. Don't let him come. Dada, I need you to help me one more time right now. Okay, tell me, what do you need? I need to broadcast to all angels. I need to speak to every angel in the world." Scott instantly understood. He bolted to the computer, sat down and grabbed the mic. "Dada, I'm activating the angel comms system. I'm using this ID. Tell the Black Brothers to open a path for me. Rain, get into that glass pod over there. It's the holographic broadcast station. I'll route you through." At that exact moment, a soft, unfamiliar voice, gentle, young, female, echoed inside the minds of every angel across the globe. Before them appeared a weary yet hopeful East Asian woman with champagne gold hair. She wore a simple white tank top, black leather pants, and tall boots. A crude triangular bandage wrapped around her chest, soaked through with blood slowly staining her top and legs crimson. "My call sign is Rain. I'm not your new commander. I'm one of you, an angel, just like you. What I'm about to say isn't an order." In Washington, D.C., an American angel lying in bed beside a high-ranking Pentagon official, her target quietly opened her eyes. The man beside her snored like a dead pig. Dawn was barely breaking. She closed her eyes again, listening intently to this voice, watching this Eastern girl who had replaced the cold, commanding presence that once controlled her mind. In clear, calm English, the voice continued, "I'm currently inside the Apostles' Tech Center in northern Frankfurt, Germany. This place could be destroyed at any second. I might vanish along with it before I finish speaking. But I must use these final moments to tell you, my sisters, this is the very site that controls the detonation system for the chips in your brains. The entire Angel Control network has collapsed under a hacker assault. It will never be rebuilt. Whether or not this building survives, the chips in your heads will never explode again." In Moscow, at a decadent gala filled with oligarchs, a Russian angel moments ago laughing and spinning in the arms of her target suddenly froze. Her boorish partner shoved her hard into the crowd. But she didn't pout or cry out in pain. She simply sat motionless on the dance floor, staring into space. Back in Frankfurt, Li Xiaoshen pressed a hand to her chest. Speaking loudly sent sharp pain through her lungs, making her voice rasp faintly. "Now I tell you this, the deepest fear controlling us from within is gone. If you're doing something you hate, only because you fear death, stop right now. I believe every single angel has the strength to break free. No one can control you anymore. In Tokyo, deep in the night, a Japanese angel stood frozen in a police headquarters office, a folder laced with neurotoxin balanced in her trembling hands. 5 minutes after skin contact, it would trigger a fatal heart attack, silent, undetectable. She slowly pulled it back, clutching it tightly. Li Xiaoxin's voice resonated in every angel's mind, her image growing clearer by the second. A pure white light enveloped her, outlining her graceful form, her wounded, blood-streaked body trembled, not from pain, but from something deeper, something between sorrow and joy. Sisters holding guns in your hands, you can choose to fire or not to fire, because you now have the right to choose. Listen to me, you are free to decide what you want to do. Sisters planting explosives at the tech center. The engineer who helped us and I are inside the control room. If you detonate those charges, I will die here. But you can also choose to let me walk out with you, into the sunlight, back to the people you love, into the lives you once dreamed of. A veiled Afghan woman crouched on a rooftop in a small town, her sniper rifle trained on a grand family banquet below. She had been lying in wait since afternoon, watching the sun sink beneath the horizon. This was a powerful drug-producing clan. As she listened to Li Xiaoxin's words, she smiled, pulled the trigger, then set down her rifle, removed her black gloves, and vanished into the chaos. With a deafening explosion, the door to the control room corridor blew open. The angels saw Li Xiaoxin glance back once, then turn again and speak. Angels aiming your guns at your sisters, you could kill those who seek freedom. But before you pull the trigger, look into their eyes. Look at their faces. They think for themselves, just like you do. No matter how different your beliefs or stances may be, there is no meaning in hurting each other. To get me here, the Tokyo Asia Division angels paid a heavy price. To take this step forward, we killed one another. The voice speaking to you now isn't just one person. It's the voices of many souls who have already died for freedom. I stand here walking on their blood. My freedom in this moment, and yours was bought with their blood. We've shot at each other, but we were never enemies. We've lived through what you've lived through. We've felt what you feel. Deep in a Colombian jungle base, a dozen red-haired girls split into two opposing groups, their XM bite rifles leveled at each other across the barracks. Their leaders stood at the front, fingers on triggers, tension thick enough to cut. The rising sun glinted off, sweat beading on furrowed brows. Suddenly, one leader's magazine slipped from her rifle and clattered to the ground. She was the first to unload her weapon. One by one, both sides followed, magazines dropping until the floor was littered with ammunition. Behind Li Xiaoxian stood a row of European women, each gripping an XM bite rifle. Scott looked at them in panic, then back at Li Xiaoxian inside the glass chamber. Her wound throbbed worse by the second, her breathing growing heavier. Clutching her side with one hand and bracing against the glass with the other, she said, 4 angels came from Asia to Germany. Feng had such a beautiful figure, she once told me she wanted to be a model. Jin was thoughtful and sensitive. She dreamed of starting a cosmetics company. Tong was only 17. She had a crush on a boy who played baseball but never confessed it, because she was an angel. She couldn't speak of love, couldn't love or be loved. All she could do was tell me, and endure abuse from men she despised. We planned to find a neurosurgeon here to remove our chips, but only I made it alive. Her voice broke. Tears spilled freely as she choked out. I have someone I want to love too, and I believe he loves me deeply. Thank God I can go find him now. She slowly turned around, tears streaming down her face, and faced the line of European girls. I have my own name. The one I truly love. The one my beloved loves even more. My name is Li Xiaoxian. If we meet on the street, please call me Xiaoxian. Thank you for letting me finish speaking. These 10 minutes are the first truly free moments of my life. In these minutes, I spoke freely, loved freely, and was loved freely. If shooting me now is your true choice, I won't hate you. I only ask that you let Scott go. Without him, none of us would have this freedom. After she finished, Li Xiaoxian didn't leave the glass chamber. She wasn't sure if the angels would shoot her. But if she had to die, she wanted every angel across the world to witness it. Maybe her death could awaken one more heart. In a roadside motel in Maryland, United States, Rentaro strapped on his weapons, then pulled a down jacket over them. According to his divination, the apostles were losing ground in the economic war. With the Asia division destroyed, he felt his status within the organization crumbling, and he'd been excluded from financial decisions. Seizing the Dragon Codex now might be his only chance to reverse the tide. He turned to look at Yuki. Just moments ago, she'd been meticulously assembling gear. But now she sat motionless on the bed, usually proud and upright. Her petite Japanese frame always held with confidence. She now slumped limply, half-assembled pistol in hand, looking especially small and fragile against the wide double bed. Rentaro called her name twice, but she remained unresponsive like a lifeless doll, exhausted from sleepless nights and constant defeats in his Feng Shui battles against Anliang. Rentaro stormed over and snapped. Yuki, what are you doing? She jolted as if waking from a dream. Quickly finished assembling her pistol, and followed Rentaro out the door, lost in thought. Daniel rerouted Li Xiaoxin's broadcast signal directly to Anliang's phone. The two men watched her together, sobbing uncontrollably over the long-distance call. Wiping his tears, Anliang pleaded with Daniel, Bro, I need to find Xiaoxin, send me her coordinates now, shaking his head and dabbing his eyes with a towel. Daniel replied, Xiaoxin said she'll come find you, don't move, if you wander off, she won't be able to locate you. I never knew Xiaoxin was such an incredible girl, it's really moving. Give me her phone number, I have so much to say to her. She didn't give me a number. Anliang's voice cracked with frustration and grief. Dada, you're so stupid, why didn't you give her my number? She says she'll come find me, but how can she without my number? She might still be in danger. If we don't meet, I swear I'll kill you when I get back. Daniel flared up too, his voice trembling with hurt. Liang, I just saved your girlfriend. For this, I wired $5,000 each to over 300 hackers from my personal account. How can you talk to me like this? Your New York office number printed on your business card is known worldwide. If you use it, the apostles will track you instantly. Those 5 German numbers you rotate through are secret. They're only safe between us. If they leak, a sniper will blow your head off before you know it. I did all this to protect you, and I told Xiaoxian I'd connect you too. But she refused. She didn't want you to find her. Xiaoxian's been hurt. And she's right there in Frankfurt? And Liang cursed loudly afterward. And Daniel couldn't take it anymore. He hung up with a sharp beep. Xiao Yu handed An Liang several tissues. After An Liang finished the call, he kept his forehead cradled in both hands, so Xiao Yu held out his own phone for him to see. An Liang opened his eyes and saw that the plunging stock price of Weiss Bank had suddenly slowed its fall, even showing signs of forming a bottom. He turned to Xiao Yu, who said, "Looks like the White Knight's money has stepped in," and Liang immediately grabbed the phone and dialed Daniel again. This time Daniel didn't answer. And Liang muttered to himself, "Could this fat black guy really be that petty? I've always argued with him, even threatened to kill him 100 times. Hasn't he gotten used to it by now?" Daniel wasn't angry at An Liang. He knew well that An Liang never lost his temper over small things. Even when he snapped at Daniel, it was only because they were friends, and friends always forgave each other. The moment he cut off An Liang's call, Elena rang him, urging him to start negotiations with Mishima Bank. Daniel understood his role perfectly. Elena had placed full control in his hands, not just because he had the skills, but because United America's investment was merely a shell company registered in the British Virgin Islands, a typical front used for laundering money or hiding identities. Such firms rarely engaged in legitimate business. If United Americas wanted to launch a financial strike, they certainly wouldn't use licensed, above-board traders. Only someone like him, kicked out of Wall Street with a criminal record, was ideal. No one could trace orders back to the real source. And even if things blew up, he'd protect himself by staying silent. Negotiating with Mishima Bank absolutely required someone like him. Only a mysterious figure who'd vanished from Wall Street could recklessly throw out outrageous terms without fear. Someone with nothing left to lose simply didn't care about ruining their future. But Daniel had grown accustomed to this identity. Now, he felt that having no official status was a kind of freedom. Operating outside the law, acting on his own sense of justice, it was far more thrilling than playing by the rules. He murmured to himself while dialing Mishima Bank's number, "Dada was born a damn criminal. Being a hacker is such a waste of talent. Musi, Mr. Usagi, you have to hear me out this time. Do you remember the 300 million yen in political donations from the Hashimoto faction?" Usa Haruo, vice president of Mishima Bank, hadn't slept all night. He was following the original plan, directing traders to slowly funnel funds into the Frankfurt market to quietly accumulate cheap shares of Weiss Bank. He'd spoken with Daniel many times before, but none of those talks had worked. Threats meant nothing to him. Mishima Bank had no shady debts to hide. If Weiss Bank collapsed, they could simply expand their territory at a bargain price. By now, Weiss Bank's share price had plummeted from 46 euros to 23, halved, and to prepare for a major acquisition in a few hours, he needed to build an initial position. That subtle move had unexpectedly stabilized the stock price. Now, hearing Daniel dredge up old history, Usagi replied in a weary voice, speaking stiff, accented English coldly. "What does that have to do with us? The Hashimoto faction is already fallen chrysanthemums on the ground. And that 300 million yen donation wasn't sent by us. You must be mistaken. No. The Hashimoto faction still holds strong influence within the Fukuda cabinet. What I'm telling you now concerns you directly. I have excellent intelligence to share. Would you like to hear it?" Daniel's words silenced Usa Haruo. He didn't respond, waiting for Daniel to continue. In 1998, former Japanese Prime Minister Ryutaro Hashimoto lost his re-election bid but still tightly controlled his family's Hashimoto faction. However, in 2004, he was embroiled in a political scandal involving 100 million yen in illicit political donations, forcing him to resign as head of the Hashimoto faction, passing the leadership to his second son. Daniel checked at the time. Half an hour had already passed since he began cracking the code for Xiaoxian. Frankfurt's 1 o'clock afternoon would arrive soon. And Liang had stressed they must launch a full-scale attack on Weiss Bank before then. The clock was ticking. Yet Daniel deliberately slowed his speech, careful not to let his desperation show. Mr. Usagi, in 2004, Ryutaro Hashimoto handed the chairmanship to his second son, but shortly after, the Hashimoto faction was exposed again, this time for receiving 300 million yen in untraceable political donations. There's a clear record of the deposit in their accounts, yet the source has never been identified, leaving the case unresolved. Now, we have concrete evidence that 300 million yen came straight out of Mishima Bank. Usagi frowned and said after a moment's thought, "Impossible. I know the bank's books well, nothing like that ever happened. Don't make things up." "Then we'll just hand the evidence over to Yomiuri Shimbun. It's a national newspaper, they'll pay handsomely for this story. Right now, they're printing tomorrow's edition. In 12 hours, you'll get to read it for free along with the rest of Japan. Ha 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 ha." Daniel's laughter disgusted Usagi deeply. From the accent alone, he could tell the man was black, and this whole conversation reeked of coercion and bribery, demanding Mishima Bank switch sides to support United Americas. Japanese firms valued long-standing relationships. They looked down on faceless newcomers like United Americas. Besides, the takeover of Weiss Bank involved deep political backing and vested interests. How could anyone expect them to abandon it over a few words? But if what Daniel claimed was true, the consequences would be catastrophic. If Yomiuri Shimbun really hit the streets tomorrow with a scandal implicating Mishima Bank, not only would they lose any profit from the acquisition, they might not even survive as an independent institution. At worst, the Ministry of Finance could force a merger. Usagi fell silent again, but he didn't hang up. He refused to speak first, unwilling to show weakness or push Daniel too far. Daniel had dealt with Japanese executives before and was starting to grasp their mindset. Silence in Japan could mean many things: agreement, disagreement, or delay. This silence, he sensed, was anticipation. After waiting a beat and hearing neither a reply nor a disconnect, Daniel knew Usagi was interested, so he pressed further. The chairman of Mishima Bank belongs to the Imperial Loyalist faction, doesn't he? What? Usagi was genuinely shocked. Personnel matters at Mishima Bank were notoriously complex, but the board was broadly split into two camps: the Imperial Loyalists and the Elder faction. The Imperial Loyalists were hardline appointees pushed in by various political groups, while the Elder faction consisted of direct descendants of the bank's founding directors. Both factions belonged to Japan's right-wing circles and usually coexisted peacefully, but on major issues, disputes always arose. Ultimately, the Elder faction often yielded to political pressure and approved the Imperial Loyalists' decisions. And Yusei Haruo was the highest-ranking member of the Elder faction. Daniel saw that the information was having some effect on Yusei Haruo, so he added, "Our intelligence shows that the 300 million in political donations withdrawn from Mishima Bank is linked to the Imperial Loyalist faction." Of course, no one outside knows who inside Mishima Bank is on the right side or the wrong side. When this scandal goes public, the Imperial Loyalists will get what they deserve, but you, who worked so hard to build the bank, will be dragged down with them through no fault of your own. Yusei Haruo murmured softly. Is that so? At that moment, another calculation clicked into place in his mind. Even if Daniel exposed the scandal, the Imperial Loyalist Party's influence might still suppress it. If he relayed this information to the Grand President right away and got Japanese media to lock it down beforehand, the scandal might not even touch Mishima Bank. In fact, it could even give the elder statesmen of the Imperial Loyalist faction a chance to ease tensions. And even if they cooperated with the United Americas, he couldn't see any real benefit. Mere threats weren't enough to pressure him. Yusei Haruo spoke slowly, each word firm and authoritative. "Thank you for telling me this, I understand." Then he gently placed the phone back on its cradle. Daniel shouted into the phone a few times, cursed loudly, slammed down the international line to Japan, and immediately dialed Elena. She was swamped trying to dig up insider information on Mishima Bank and told him she hadn't uncovered anything new yet, but as soon as she did, she'd get it straight to him. Just then, Liang called again. His voice was weary and drained. "Dada, I'm sorry, I lost my temper earlier. I don't usually act like that." Daniel was just as agitated as before. "Sorry for what? I'm not mad. The problem is Mishima Bank still won't accept our terms, and the dirt Elena found isn't scaring them off. Do you have any other ideas?" "Hurry up. I won't make it by noon if we don't move fast." Both of them instinctively glanced at the stock chart for Weiss Bank. The price had hovered around 23 euros for the past half hour, looking like the usual midday lull when traders step out for lunch and volume drops, but they both knew better. It was actually Mishima Bank propping up the stock with hidden capital. Rentaro and Shui climbed into a black Lincoln sedan, followed by 3 other vehicles, all heading toward a small town in Maryland, USA called Thurmont. The town itself stretched only 3 kilometers long, but to its west loomed the 30-kilometer-long Cato Mountain. Most of Maryland was flat plain, except along its western edge where low, wrinkled ridges ran in orderly, noodle-like rows, long narrow folds aligned precisely north to south like waves. Right where these waves met the eastern plains, a single massive crescent-shaped hill rose abruptly, Cato Mountain. Its outer curve faced west, while its inner arc embraced the quiet, unremarkable town of Thurmont. Back in the underground Tokyo base, Rentaro had performed a brainwave scan on Aki during her interrogation, capturing her mental image of the location where the Dragon Codex was stored. It was an utterly ordinary country villa containing a safe, and inside that safe rested the 3 legendary Feng Shui texts, including the imperial masterpiece, the Dragon Codex. But before the interrogation and scanning could finish, Aki realized what was happening. Shortly after, Liang led a team of mercenaries and destroyed the entire facility. All Rentaro had left were those hazy, fragmented images. Yet with the Apostle's formidable technical support, he reconstructed a full Sendi model of the villa from those fragments. After extensive computer analysis cross-referencing every rural estate across the United States, he finally identified a match with over 99% certainty, a private residence in Thurmont, Maryland. After arriving in New York, he mobilized a small Apostles unit from the Americas Division and rushed them to the site. Once field agents confirmed the location on site, he personally entered Thurmont. He intended to retrieve the Dragon Codex himself and return it to Frankfurt. Surrounded by snow-covered mountains, 4 Lincoln sedans crept slowly along the snowy road into Thermod. Rentaro ordered the other vehicles to guard key entry points around town while he quietly drove up to a secluded villa. Before they even stepped out, Shui pulled out a surveillance detector. If any monitoring devices were nearby, it would immediately sound an alert. A series of short beeps, beep, beep, suddenly rang out. Shui instantly turned her head toward the villa's front lawn. Days of snowfall had buried it under drifts reaching mid-calf. She scanned the path leading to the house. No footprints, no visible signs of surveillance equipment. Frowning, she muttered, "Does anyone even live here?" She flipped another switch on the detector, activating its signal jamming function. After a moment, the warning tone ceased, proof that all nearby surveillance devices had been neutralized. Rentaro's face remained taut, his voice low and resonant. "You go in first." Shui slipped on a fluffy mink coat, grabbed the plastic bag holding a pastry box, and walked up to the villa's front door like a visiting relative. She rang the bell once, twice, but no sound came from inside, from the car. Rentaro had already used an electronic compass to assess the Feng Shui of the area. Nothing suggested deliberate arrangement by a master. He'd also scanned the building with a biodetector. No life signs. Now he stepped out and approached the door. Exchanging a glance with Shui, she swiftly pulled a compact electric lockpick from her pocket, resembling a multi-tool, and inserted it into the lock. With a soft click, the door opened, and she slipped inside. Inside, Rentaro saw only a typical American home fully furnished, with family photos covering the walls, some yellowed with age. Shui moved quickly from room to room, searching for the safe she'd seen in Aki's brainwave image. According to Rentaro's divination, it was in the basement. As Shui searched, Rentaro studied the photographs on the wall. Most showed standard American family life, a multi-generational household with parents, children, and grandparents, but his attention locked onto one elderly man, white-haired, dignified, radiating gentle grace. His smile was warm yet solemn, but deep in his eyes lay a steely resolve far beyond what an ordinary man would carry. He heard Shui's voice in his earpiece. She was entering the basement. He turned back to the older photos. These showed World War II aircraft and pilots, both group shots and solo portraits. One stood out, a striking black and white half-body portrait of a young American airman, handsome like a movie star. Though youthful, his eyes were unmistakably those of the white-haired gentleman in the family photos. But what made Rentaro's heart skip was the planes themselves. Every aircraft in the photos was a single-engine propeller model, with a pointed spinner and an oval air intake beneath the engine, giving the whole machine the look of a winged shark. And it wasn't just his imagination. Painted boldly on the nose of each plane was a snarling, open-mouthed shark. Rentaro muttered to himself, "So it's still you." The aircraft model was the P-40, nicknamed the Warhawk. During World War II, it had been the primary fighter used by General Chennault's American volunteer group, the famed Flying Tigers, who aided China. Its performance wasn't exceptional. By the time it was deployed to support Chinese forces in the Southwest Theater, it had already been phased out of frontline combat against the Axis powers in favor of newer models. Yet pilots who traveled thousands of miles from America fought bloody, grueling dogfights against Japanese air forces using these outdated planes. Rentaro's mind drifted to stories his grandfather Nagato Yaro once told him, memories of roaring engines and iron eagles soaring across the skies of southwestern China over 60 years ago. He also recalled that Yuko had extracted similar images from Akari's deep genetic memory, scenes from a fierce battle fought over the Dragon Codex. The thought of the Codex and his family's legacy stirred something hot inside him, clouding his thoughts. He shook himself awake from the haze, pulled off his snow cap, ran a hand through his spiky, hedgehog-like hair, and dashed into the basement. Yuko was crouched in front of a safe, her petite frame nearly small enough to fit inside the metal box itself. A pinhole camera had already been inserted into the keyhole, allowing her to view the internal mechanism through her visual goggles. Cracking this old-fashioned lock posed little challenge. Carefully twisting the dials left and right, she gently pulled open the safe door. Inside sat a neatly arranged wooden case. Opening it revealed 3 thread-bound books with yellowed parchment covers, blank, without a single word inscribed. As Yuko reached for them, Rentaro stopped her, pulling a test strip from his pocket and swiping it across the cover. Everything since they'd entered had gone suspiciously smoothly. Rentaro worried there might be more traps hidden within. The greatest danger would be poison on the books themselves. The test strip showed no toxins, but that only deepened his suspicion. Akari knew he would come for the Dragon Codex. Would she really make it this easy? Both sides were practitioners of yin-yang arts. Just as he could divine outcomes, so could she. Did this mean Akari had accepted fate and simply surrendered the Codex? Impossible. Just days earlier, Akari had evaded an assassination attempt by the angels and vanished right under their noses. She could very well be watching him right now. Rentaro pulled out an electronic compass to check the orientation. This spot was indeed the villa's wealth-gathering sector, a location Feng Shui masters typically reserved for safes. He flipped through the 3 books briefly. As expected, they contained Feng Shui diagrams and pages filled with incantations. That made him even more uneasy. Could it really be this straightforward? Was Akari trying to avoid further conflict by handing over the Codex according to his own methods? Yuko fully understood Rentaro's doubts. She whispered softly, "We also recorded a short fragment of the Dragon Codex from Akari's mind. We can compare it with these books to verify authenticity." Just then, Rentaro's phone rang. The caller reported that the Apostles' Tech Center had suffered a catastrophic attack. The Angels' control system was completely destroyed. The apostles had lost all technical capabilities. Their communications now relied solely on civilian networks and regular phones. After hanging up, Rentaro slowly rose to his feet, watching Yuko as she cross-referenced the book contents on her laptop. He reached into his coat, drew his pistol, and screwed on a silencer. Yuko suddenly turned to look at him. In that instant, Rentaro leaped backward and raised his gun, pointing it straight at her. Yuko didn't flinch. Calmly, as if nothing had happened, she lowered her head and continued her work. Rentaro kept the weapon trained on her and asked quietly, "You have a chip implanted in your brain. You receive orders and updates directly? No need for phones or computers." "You already knew the Angel system was down before we even got here. Why didn't you tell me immediately?" Yuko paused, set down her tools, and looked up. Rain attacked the Frankfurt Tech Center. Now the Angels aren't just free from control, their self-destruct systems have been disabled too. As Rain said, we can choose our own paths now. I don't know what others will decide, but I've chosen to stay by your side. With that decision, there was no need to inform you. Rentaro stared at her, disbelief written across his face. "I've always wondered, how did you survive alone when everyone else fled Tokyo base? Why did you stay with me? What's your real purpose?" "I only want to be with you, sir," Yuko said, placing the laptop aside and starting to stand. Rentaro barked, "Don't move." She froze instantly, then spoke calmly. "Sir, please don't shoot. I'm not afraid of dying by your hand. But right now you need someone beside you to fulfill your ambitions. You're a powerful man, you're destined for greatness. But you can't do everything alone. Let me stay with you. Haven't you grown accustomed to my service all these years? Have I ever failed to please you?" Rentaro remained silent. He didn't believe a word. Every angel obeyed only under the threat of the explosive implant. Even so, there had been past cases of angels rebelling against their handlers, which was why mutual surveillance and distrust were core tenets of angel training. No matter how perfectly Yuko performed or how devoted she seemed, he saw it all as coercion. A woman conditioned by constant fear of death, trained never to trust enemies, or even allies, could never earn his trust unless he held undeniable leverage. And if that leverage vanished, the relationship had to end immediately. Yuko kept her eyes locked on him. Then unexpectedly, she smiled. "If you truly suspected me back then, you should have killed me on the spot. But you didn't. You kept me close all this time. Was it really just because of the chip in my head?" She rose slowly to her feet. "So I don't believe you'll pull the trigger. You like me." Yuko rarely smiled. Her delicate porcelain face almost never showed such expression. That was partly why Rentaro seldom assigned her diplomatic missions. Perhaps more truthfully, he didn't want other men seeing that smile. But he couldn't admit that to himself. As leader of an assassination syndicate, he couldn't afford emotional attachments. Her question echoed one he'd asked himself many times. Why hadn't he eliminated this strange survivor immediately? Was it merely to save face by keeping the last angel under his command? Now, despite knowing it was the most logical course of action, he found himself unable to squeeze the trigger. Nor could he send her back to Japan under guard. If she revealed to others that the angel network had collapsed, it would spark mass defections. The two stood facing each other in icy silence. Rentaro stared for a long while into Snow's clear eyes. She was the strongest among the angels in terms of brainwave power, and her mastery over neural weaponry was so extraordinary it seemed as if the entire brainwave system had been invented just for her. This woman possessed a natural hypnotic ability. Gazing into her eyes felt like falling into an abyss. Rentaro couldn't tell whether he was captivated by her eyes, or if they were deliberately ensnaring him. He gritted his teeth and said, "Step back to the corner, take off your coat, and drop all your weapons." Disappointment and resignation flickered in Snow's eyes. "Is it really going to end like this?" Before she could finish speaking, Rentaro fired a shot beside her with a sharp crack. Snow fell silent. Slowly she removed her overcoat, revealing a tight black leather outfit beneath that accentuated her petite teenage-like figure. She then laid down a pistol and a dagger. Any other tools, dropped them all. Snow pulled out a whole array of spy gadgets and lockpicks, bundled them together, and tossed the package into Rentaro's hands. Rentaro pointed his gun toward the safe. "Get inside." Snow took 2 slow steps forward. The safe was large enough to accommodate her slender frame if she curled up inside. But no matter how outdated the model, safes were essentially airtight and waterproof, which meant anyone sealed inside would suffocate within a short time. She stopped walking and looked at Rentaro. Her expression remained calm, yet her large eyes brimmed with sorrow. A single tear rolled down from the corner of her eye. "Don't be afraid," Rentaro said coldly. "Every angel must ultimately give their life for the organization." Snow lowered her head and whispered softly, "I'm not afraid of dying, but I'm afraid of being alone. Let me stay by your side. I'll do anything as long as I can follow you." After a moment of silence, Rentaro showed no sign of changing his mind. Snow lifted her head and gave him a sorrowful smile. "Sir, will you remember me?" Rentaro's expression twisted with conflict. After a pause, he gave a slight nod but kept his gun trained on her. "Sir, say no more." "No!" Snow suddenly screamed. Then, lowering her voice with suppressed emotion, she pleaded, "Can I have something of yours? It's so dark in there." At that moment, tears burst forth uncontrollably, and she wept silently. The angel's tears and pleas were part of their professional training. Rentaro wouldn't be easily fooled. Still, he dared not look away from her. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a white handkerchief, and tossed it to her. Snow caught it. The fabric still carried the warmth of his body. She gently dabbed her tears with it, then offered Rentaro a faint, bittersweet smile before kneeling on the floor and bowing her head. Just now I cross-referenced it with the Dragon Codex. The incantations match perfectly. It's very likely the original Dragon Codex. Sir, you often suffer from insomnia. Please don't rely too much on sleeping pills. Find someone else to attend to you instead of Snow. Relaxing before bed works far better than medication. I'm sorry for causing you trouble, sir. Please take care of yourself. Having spoken, Snow climbed into the safe and pulled the door shut behind her. Rentaro rushed forward, pressed down on the door, scrambled the combination, then fired 2 shots into the lock, deforming it beyond use. He yanked the handle several times to confirm the door was sealed, gathered the items on the floor, and hurried out of the basement. At Rentaro's parked car, across the street stood another villa. Inside, the room was warm. Annie and Liu Zhongtang were crouched beside the window watching the scene unfold. Several days earlier, when Liu Zhongtang spotted the angels searching for Annie at the Chinatown Chinese school, he immediately escorted her out through the back door and onto an ice cream truck bound for Maryland. Along the way, Annie kept her phone switched off, using only Liu Zhongtang's device to communicate. Phones were the easiest things to track. Making a call was like walking down the street holding a giant sign, or shouting into a megaphone at a busy intersection. The whole world would know exactly where you were and who you were talking to. Once in Maryland, Annie had made all necessary arrangements, even borrowing this house from a neighbor, waiting for Rentaro to arrive. She knew he would come in person. Beneath the window sat Schnauzer puppy Coco, wearing a tiny white sweater, sitting upright and handsome, ears perked as he listened to the adults. Tall and muscular, Liu Zhongtang stood guard by the window like a temple door god. He'd shaved off his beard, revealing strong, resolute features and a firm jawline, his mature masculinity radiating like a classic tough guy leading man. He said to Annie, "This is a risky move. If Rentaro breaks through our encirclement in one go, the Dragon Codex will be lost to him forever." Dressed in a long gown and wrapped in a white wool scarf, Annie looked like an ethereal university professor untouched by worldly concerns. She smiled faintly and replied, "The Japanese won't give up until they get what they want. Even if we fled to Mars, they'd chase us in a shuttle. The only way to stop them is to let them obtain the Dragon Codex first and then destroy it right before their eyes. Only when they witness its disappearance with their own eyes will they finally cease their pursuit. You might not know this, but Rentaro is already the 3rd generation of the Nagato family fighting over the Dragon Codex. As long as it exists in this world, even Liang and Jingjing's grandchildren will be locked in battle with the Nagato clan. Miss and Yi, your foresight truly reaches generations ahead. But none of China's Feng Shui masters even know the Dragon Codex exists. How did the Nagato clan learn of it?" Annie glanced out the window. The black Lincoln sedan was still parked by the roadside. She sighed deeply. "It's a long story. Back in the late Qing dynasty, during the Taiping Rebellion, a Japanese onmyoji named Niwa Jun had dealings with our ancestors and thus learned of the imperial Feng Shui arts. After returning to Japan, he joined the Meiji Restoration and was hunted by the shogunate, so he changed his surname to Nagato and went into hiding among the common people. Originally, the Nagato clan and the Yin family were old friends. My father even studied under Niwa's grandson, Nagato Yuro, while studying in Japan. But after World War II broke out, Nagato Yuro supported the emperor's vision of a greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere, severed ties with the Yin family, and even joined the invading Japanese army to plunder the Dragon Codex in China. Ever since, they've relentlessly pursued the Yin family, so Rentaro's appearance now was entirely expected. Liu Zhongtang scratched his head. "What a long tale, hey. Rentaro's coming out, but he's alone. What happened to that girl?" They peered outside and saw Rentaro hurrying toward his car, clutching a mink fur women's coat, stuffed full of items. Annie frowned in confusion. What's he planning? Leaving someone behind for an ambush? Unlikely. That coat's packed with too many things. Look, even the wooden box is inside. He's got the Dragon Codex. Wait, that coat belongs to the girl. Why would he take her coat in this freezing weather? Could it be? And Yi and Liu Zhongtang nearly shouted in unison. In fighting. And Yi grabbed her phone and dialed a number urgently. The situation's changed. I'll be late catching up with Rentaro's car. You go ahead and stop them in some deserted spot. Don't let them leave Highway 15. If they do, they'll reach Washington Airport in an hour. Still on the call, and Yi and Liu Zhongtang sprinted toward the villa across the street, with their little dog Coco hopping excitedly behind them. Once inside, they rushed straight to the basement. There they found a safe, with its lock broken, completely unusable now, and Coco barking furiously at it. It was obvious someone had been locked inside, and Yi yanked hard on the handle a few times, then turned to Liu Zhongtang. Hurry, find something to open this door. The safe is airtight, they'll suffocate. The safe was massive and heavy, ordinary tools stood no chance. While Liu Zhongtang ran off to find something useful, and Yi kept pounding on the metal, hoping for any sign of life from within, but no matter how hard she hit it, there was no response. Liu Zhongtang soon returned from the backyard with a shovel and slammed it against the door several times, but couldn't wedge it into the seam. Panicking, and Yi told him to keep trying while she dashed outside to knock on neighbors' doors, begging to borrow tools. After what felt like forever, an Yi came panting back, dragging a woodcutter's axe. Liu Zhongtang snatched it and swung fiercely at the keypad lock. Sparks flew, and the clang of metal filled the air. After about a dozen brutal strikes, the lock finally cracked open. Lu Zhongtong then jammed the shovel in and pried with all his might until a small, frail Japanese girl tumbled out of the safe, clutching a white handkerchief tightly in her hand, lying motionless on the floor. And Yi had crossed paths with Shui many times before and recognized her instantly, but right now, saving her life mattered more than old grudges. She undid the top button of Shu's collar and together with Lu Zhongtong began performing CPR. Minutes passed. Both were drenched in sweat, yet Shu remained pale and still. And Yi reached to check her nose and felt a faint, steady breath, so subtle it seemed deliberate, as if Shu were feigning unconsciousness. Something felt off. Just as Yi started to pull back to reassess, Shu's eyes snapped open, and her fingers shot straight for Yi's eyes. The move was sudden and vicious. At such close range, if Yi hadn't already been leaning away, those fingers could have gouged straight into her eye sockets. Instead, they only pressed hard against her eyeballs, driving them inward. She screamed, toppled backward, and clutched her face, tears streaming uncontrollably as searing pain blinded her. Lu Zhongtong, still crouched beside Shu, hadn't even registered what happened before she wrapped her legs around his neck and twisted with explosive force. He crashed to the ground. In an instant, Shu rolled onto him, pinned his head between her knees, and drove a crushing punch straight into his nose. The blow sent waves of agony through Lu Zhongtong. Roaring in pain, he thrust both arms upward with the iron bridge power of Hongquan, launching Shu off his body, light and agile as she was. She couldn't withstand the raw fury behind his movement. The bridge hand technique hurled her upward, higher than a man's head, until the back of her skull slammed into the fluorescent light fixture above. Glass shattered, plunging the room into total darkness. Before Shu could hit the floor, Lu Zhongtong lunged, grabbed her ankle, and dragged her down hard, pinning her beneath him and wrenching both arms behind her back. "Got her," he yelled. "Yunji, are you okay? Don't move." And Yi called out, pressing her hands over her stinging eyes as she hurried upstairs for a flashlight and rope. When she returned to bind Shui, she saw the girl thrashing wildly, even with her arms twisted behind her. She was crawling desperately toward something. Blood streaked her delicate, beautiful face, and her expression was feral like a cornered wolf. And Yi first tied Shui's ankles, then helped Lu Zhongtong secure her wrists behind her back. Yet Shui kept writhing on the floor, eyes fixed on a filthy trampled white handkerchief nearby. Give it to me," she gasped. Lu Zhongtong, still holding her down, finally stood up to catch his breath once she was fully restrained. "So this is an angel? No wonder you've had trouble with them before, Yunji. Dangerous, every one of them." And Yi rubbed her eyes and shook her head. "I just don't understand these girls. They've got good lives, why act like madwomen?" She looked down at Shui, who had bitten the handkerchief off the floor, and now lay panting, eyes fixed elsewhere. Seeing Shui's slight frame and features reminded Yi painfully of her own daughter and Jing. A pang of pity stirred in her chest. She knelt down. "Is this thing really that important to you?" Shui nodded silently, and suddenly tears spilled from her eyes. And Yi sighed softly. "Don't move. Let me put the handkerchief in your pocket for you, okay?" Another nod. And Yi picked up the cloth. Shu whispered hoarsely, the inner pocket closest to the skin. After tucking it safely away, and Yi turned to Liu Zhongtong. "Carry her to the car. We need to catch up with Rentaro now." Liu Zhongtong hoisted Shui over his shoulder like luggage, and they bolted out the front door. The moment they stepped into the yard, 4 black Lincoln sedans screeched to a halt at the gate. Rentaro leapt out in a panic, boots crunching on the snow, pistol drawn and aimed straight at Liu Zhongtong. Put her down at the sight of Rentaro. Shui, who had just stopped crying, burst into tears again, her voice trembling with desperate joy. Master, master." She squirmed violently on Liu Zhongtong's shoulder, struggling to get down. Both in Yi and Liu Zhongtong's shoulder, struggling to get down. Both in Yi and Liu Zhongtong froze in confusion. Liu Zhongtong stared blankly at Rentaro. "What the hell is going on? What are you people doing?" And Yi scanned the scene. The other cars were packed with assassins, rows of dart gun barrels trained squarely on them. She whispered urgently to Liu Zhongtong, "Don't hand her over. Get her back inside." Then she glanced skyward. Far off in the clear blue sky, 3 tiny black dots were rapidly approaching. As she backed away, she raised her phone to make a call. Mishima Bank's uncompromising stance had stripped Daniel of his last line of support. As long as the White Robe Knights existed, any attack Daniel launched against the Weiss Bank would ultimately benefit Mishima Bank alone. Now their only hope lay in Elena producing a more devastating countermeasure, and in An Liang once again wielding the mysterious power of Feng Shui. An Liang loved gambling and financial games alike. His understanding of banking operations rivaled Daniel's, and over years of real-world Feng Shui practice, he'd cultivated a unique set of techniques specifically for dismantling banks. He had already sealed every critical Feng Shui point surrounding Weiss Bank's spiritual core, the Drake Cathedral. If that still failed to produce results, An Liang would have no choice but to deliver a catastrophic strike directly to the cathedral's most vital Feng Shui nexus, the Dragon's Orifice. Dragon's Orifice? Is there really such a thing as Dragon's Orifice in Feng Shui? Xiao Yu had been sitting on top of the water tanker with An Liang. After hearing An Liang briefly explain a few things, he asked in confusion. An Liang glanced at the straight road behind St. Drake's Church. 3 landscaping trucks from the parks department idled with their engines running, gently vibrating. The 3 crane arms formed a small triangular iron tower, resolute yet oddly out of place in the middle of the neighborhood. Workers lounged under the midday sun, leisurely smoking and eating hot dogs. He turned to Xiao Yu and said, "I'll tell you later. Hello, my Führer." He picked up his phone and called the big white guy down below who was munching on a hot dog, watching as the man answered. "Can you get the chainsaws on those booms spinning? Keep them running until 3 p.m. Someone has to operate them, then send someone up." "What? Extra money?" Grumbling in frustration, An Liang ended up paying over 10,000 euros in extortion to his so-called Führer. He then directed the water tanker to back up to the left side of St. Drake's Church. Turning to Xiao Yu, he explained, "The dragon's orifice is the ultimate technique in Sun Yuan Feng Shui. Locating the dragon vein and pinpointing the acupoint is obviously crucial, but the dragon's orifice is the highest art within point selection itself. Any true dragon formation must conceal a dragon's orifice somewhere within its dragon lair area. Disturbing this spot even slightly can silently and invisibly dismantle the entire Feng Shui layout. But it's far too destructive. We usually avoid touching it altogether. Even when crafting an auspicious formation, you must never recklessly activate the dragon's orifice. You might accidentally empower some great evil instead. Your foundation isn't solid yet. Wait until you've reached the level of a certified Feng Shui master before learning this." Xiao Yu nodded obediently. "I understand. Feng Shui must be learned step by step. I'm patient and willing to take my time. But can you at least tell me where the dragon's orifice is for this church?" With a Wu Mountain Z-facing orientation, the dragon's orifice lies in the Xin direction. "That's enough for you to know for now. But remember, the dragon's orifice in the Xin sector also requires specific distance and terrain conditions. Don't go blindly poking at every Xin direction just because you see a Wu Z layout. If someone dies because of your stupidity, I won't take responsibility. Got it. I won't do anything reckless. But what's the point of having the Führer start those chainsaws?" And Lang grew slightly impatient. "Figure it out yourself. Don't ask such basic questions. Get off the truck, we've got work to do." In Feng Shui, activating auspicious or malignant energies isn't just about static forms. Real physical motion creates the most intense effects. For example, using swimming goldfish in wealth sectors to stimulate sudden fortune is a classic method. Right now, An Liang had 3 chainsaws spinning atop the Li and Jenin auspicious tower, maximizing the destructive power against the wood element Lu Kun Thief Star. This created a vicious elemental cycle. Fire generates earth generates metal, and metal overcomes wood. It worked on the same principle as construction noise disrupting the Tai Sui direction in residential Feng Shui. And Liang figured Xiao Yu should be able to deduce this himself, which was why he couldn't be bothered to explain. As the water tanker backed into position on the left side of the church, workers unreeled thick hoses from the vehicle. And Liang pulled out a glass cutter and ran to the row of ground-level windows beneath the church wall. With one swift motion, he scored a large circular hole in the glass. The tanker normally serviced city streets, washing roads and watering trees. Now, several workers opened all the valves. Water cannons on the roof sprayed wildly into surrounding trees, while flexible hoses gushed streams everywhere. And Liang, wearing a safety helmet like the others, grabbed a hose himself, cranked it to full pressure, and instead of spraying randomly, aimed the jet precisely into the circular hole he'd just cut in the window, clearly enjoying himself. Meanwhile, Tommy had just learned that the tech center in the northern suburbs had been attacked, and that the Angels were completely out of control. Trapped in utter despair, he'd briefly felt relief when the bank's stock price stabilized, only to be summoned to the window by a guard moments later. "Municipal workers are spraying water everywhere downstairs," the guard reported. Tommy looked down and saw En Liang, dressed as a laborer, gleefully hosing water into the church basement alongside a young man surrounded by genuine city workers. Enraged beyond tolerance, he snatched up a sniper rifle, slammed a round into the chamber with a loud clack, and prepared to shoot En Liang. Von Friedrich forcefully pinned down the barrel and barked in a commanding voice, "Tommy, what did I tell you? There are dozens of workers down there, and this is our own territory. One shot, and we're exposed immediately. We don't believe in God, so why call ourselves the apostles? Why locate our headquarters in a church? All to mask our political origins. Even if our existence is someday discovered, we want attention diverted to religion, not politics. One bullet from you will ruin 60 years of planning and land us on every police wanted list in Germany. Put the gun down. Send the priest to drive those workers away and intercept En Liang on their way out. Eliminate him then." After speaking, Von Friedrich studied Tommy's still furious expression and took the rifle from him, handing it to a guard. "Tommy, you're no longer fit to command this operation. Call Rentaro and ask what En Liang is trying to do, whether this poses any real danger. I'll handle everything else." Tommy dialed Rentaro, who replied that the spot En Liang was hosing was the dragon's heart, the most vulnerable point in the formation. Fire attacks were strictly forbidden there. Open flames, high heat, intense light. Even invisible lasers could catastrophically damage the dragon's heart, plunging the apostles into irreversible ruin. That location had to be protected at all costs. Tommy responded, "Yes, you've mentioned this before. I've already moved all the sacred texts out and installed fire extinguishers inside. If a fire breaks out, we'll respond immediately. And if bright light enters, we'll seal the windows with sandbags. But right now, En Liang is spraying water and sandbags can't fully block liquid. Could this still cause harm?" Rentaro was en route to Thermont. deeply preoccupied with the Dragon Codex. Without thinking carefully, he answered, "In that case, and Liang has made a mistake. Flooding won't damage the dragon's heart. Just reinforce waterproofing as best you can. Still, I urge you to eliminate him as soon as possible. This man is extremely dangerous." Like most buildings, St. Drake's Church had a basement with low-set windows near ground level for light and ventilation. The water and Liang blasted through the glass window was flooding directly into the church's dragon's orifice, the very chamber where its most precious scriptures had always been stored. His hose delivered a powerful stream, and within minutes the basement floor was submerged ankle-deep. Several priests rushed in, cursing and Liang while frantically stacking sandbags against the window. A priest even stormed outside, shouting furiously at the workers. And Liang didn't speak German, but he knew exactly what they were saying. Standard complaints and excuses about winter tree watering and New Year's street cleaning. After the commotion died down, and Liang and the workers climbed back onto the truck and drove away. After a while he changed into a long coat, pulled up his hood and put on sunglasses. He also stuck on a fake yellow mustache before reappearing beside the damp church. Xiao Yu was dressed similarly and pushed a hot dog cart behind him at a light jog. The two parked the cart next to a row of cars, lit the stove, and started grilling sausages for business. Xiao Yu sliced off pieces for himself as he cooked. He said to Liang, "I'm starting to get this dragon's orifice thing. The church spire is naturally the most energy-concentrated spot here. The dragon's lair lies right beneath it. With my skill level, I can't pinpoint exactly which window hides the orifice, but I can roughly guess its location. If it were up to me, I'd just slash open every window in that row and flood the whole basement." And Liang crouched under the cart, pulled out a bundle of wires and shielded his hands with his body as he connected them. He replied to Xiao Yu, "That's awfully crude. Cut the chatter, wrap this up fast so we can leave. I need to get back to New York. If Xiaoxin's looking for me, she'll definitely be there. If she wanted to meet me here, she'd have called already. Why won't she see me here? Ugh, I miss her so much." Xiao Yu glanced back at the church and said, "This dragon's lair draws in the western metal qi from the main river. To neutralize it, shouldn't we use fire?" "Yeah, so what? But if you're just flooding it with water, you're only draining some of the metal qi. How effective is that really?" And Liang paused his work, looked up, and said, "There's a gas canister inside this cart. Why don't you go set the basement on fire?" Xiao Yu gulped down a chunk of sausage with difficulty and said, "Me, arson's illegal. I won't do it. I don't need you to. Burning down the whole church would kill who knows how many people. You're using Feng Shui so recklessly you haven't even saved anyone yet. And you're already killing them." And Liang pulled out a dart gun from the cart and aimed it at the church. The fundamentals of metaphysics lie in the Wuxing and Bagua correspondences. Something associated with fire doesn't have to be literal fire. It could be light, heat, radiation, red substances, or electricity. You mentioned electricity before, but won't using water as a conductor weaken the Feng Shui effect? After all, water overcomes fire. And Liang aimed at the window where he'd just poured water. Snap. He fired a thin wire that embedded itself into the wet sandbag. Then he reached under the cart and flipped the battery switch. Instantly, electric current surged into the church basement. Every wet surface became electrified. He stood up, took a sausage from Xiao Yu, tossed it into his mouth, and chewed as he spoke. "Rentaro is a top-tier Feng Shui master. Do you think he wouldn't know about using fire to overcome metal? If we attack with fire, he'll counter with water. If we set fires, he'll put them out. Arson's illegal." And Liang snapped, "I know, don't interrupt. If we shine lasers, they'll draw curtains. If we blast hot air, they'll turn on AC. I'm sure they've already prepared defenses for the dragon's orifice. The only way to make it unstoppable is this: flood it and run current through it. Water flows in from outside, and once electrified, there's no blocking it. Even if they notice and try to dry it out, pumping out the water and then using warm air blowers, that heat is still fire element. Electricity is fire, warm air is fire, so, ha 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 ha. Oh, call Dada. While I'm suppressing the dragon's orifice here. He should have some good news by now." Daniel waited anxiously in the Feng Shui office. Whether Liang or Elena had good news or not, he would launch the first wave of short-selling attacks by 1 p.m. Confronting Mishima Bank now seemed inevitable. Just as Liang called him, Daniel received another call from Elena. She'd uncovered another insider tip through her Japanese connections, giving him a much-needed boost of confidence. After listening to her for a few moments, he immediately dialed Usa Haruo, vice president of Mishima Bank. "Mr. Yuza, you must cooperate with us this time." Yuza was busy directing traders to scoop up distressed shares of Weiss Bank when Daniel's call came through. He wasn't particularly impressed. Daniel had called too many times before, each offer unconvincing and each threat toothless. With a hint of disdain, he asked, "Mr. American, do you have any good news this time?" Daniel had no time for psychological games. He blurted out. "Back in 2007, when the Nikkei index rebounded, Mishima Bank earned massive profits under your leadership. But among the 75 stocks you managed, 2 skyrocketed with the index, then plunged straight into bankruptcy. Do you remember Fukai Bank and Sadahiro Heavy Industries?" Yuza's tone grew serious. "That's market dynamics. Unprofitable companies get eliminated. You're right, it all looked seamless. But someone kept a recording of your meeting back then. It proves you knowingly colluded with those shell companies to artificially inflate stock prices and dump them before their collapse. shifting 180 billion yen in losses onto investors. No wonder you claimed the books were clean, the problem was never on paper. Want to hear the recording? Yuza's face twitched. Slowly, he said. If there's a recording, I'd like to hear it. Daniel scrambled with his computer. Hold on, I'm opening the file. Digital audio may not hold up in court, but we have the original cassette tape, a physical tape, admissible as evidence. This is insider trading, financial crime. Get ready for prison. Who gave you that tape? Daniel detected a flicker of panic in Yuza's voice, but he pressed on without gloating. We could hand it to your ultranationalist faction, the big boss himself, or to the economic crimes unit. The media could broadcast your respected voice too, but that wouldn't benefit us. We just want you to stop buying more shares. That way, Mishima Bank suffers no loss. At that moment, Yuza heard his own voice from a closed-door meeting a year ago playing through the phone. His aged, distinctive voice was unmistakable. If played in court, even before forensic analysis, the judge would recognize it as his. All right, stop the playback, Yuza said, glancing at the dozen-plus traders outside his office, all busy, none paying attention to his call. He turned back to Daniel. I'd like to see the intelligence about the 3 billion yen political donation. Hearing this, Daniel grew even more excited. He knew Yuza had already compromised to protect his reputation and fortune, but he also worried if he didn't honor his promise and later leaked the insider trading tape, or even just sent it to the big boss of the nationalist faction, it would haunt Yuza for life. The best outcome would be exposing the donation scandal targeting the big boss tomorrow, wiping out the nationalist faction within Mishima Bank, and letting the elder faction take full legitimate control.